is a word to represent fun motoring in the 2020s, perhaps that word would be Restomod. We are in the UK 10 years away from being unable to buy a pure new internally combustion engined car. Supercars are wide, fat, heavy, ridiculously powerful. But if you buy an old car, well, you know, they're a bit floppy. They start to creak. They're not very reliable. They don't stop very well. They don't go very well. They don't steer very well. They don't grip very much. And so, combining the best of the new with the best of the old, you end up with a Restomod, restoration modification, or something like this, which is the Cyan Racing P1800. Now, you may know the Volvo P1800 from way back in the 1960s. This started life as one of those, but it is more mod than Resto. So what is today Cyan Racing used to be Polestar Racing before Polestar became Polestar, but Cyan still races Volvo products. It also races Link & Co products. Now that is another of the Geely sub-brands that Volvo is part of the group of, and it races them very well. It won the World Touring Car Championship a few years ago, and then the Touring Car Championship changed its regulations, and Cyan found that it had 60 racing engineers used to making Super Touring Plus style cars, and they were told actually now the regulations are going to change to TCR style regs, and the TCR touring car is a much more road-based control formula with less engineering innovation for engineers to get on with. So Cyan had a few engineers sitting around and thought, well, why don't we make something cool? Well, this is that something cool. And it still technically, according to its Swedish registration, is a P1800 coupe. However, let me talk you through the pieces that are still original P1800 from this car. They are these A pillars, that B pillar, that C pillar. There is a bonnet release under there. There is a handbrake to my left. And there are windscreen wipers. And that's it. The rest of it has been made anew. So there's a new floor, a new carbon fibre strength providing chassis. It runs an Australian sourced fantastic feeling 5-speed manual gearbox with a dog leg first. And that is mated to a Volvo 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. Now that is Volvo's latest generation engine. You may remember it said, we're not going to make any cars with more than 4 cylinders and we're not going to have anything of more than 2 litres. So it has a 2-litre 4-cylinder that it variously turbocharges and supercharges to make loads of power. This just has the turbocharger and it makes over 400 horsepower. But the important thing is, because this is a classic car, the guys from Cyan say, look, what we didn't want to do is have a really boosty engine. So it gets more powerful the further up the rev range you go. So there's very little turbo lag, and it revs to 'You can hear it whistle and stuff as you lift off, but it does not feel like a turbocharged car. It just feels like a really good, naturally aspirated engine. So that gives this car, which now weighs 990 kilos, really terrific performance. And it's small, and it's nimble. Because it's front engine and quite a long bonnet, it does have power assisted steering. That hasn't been totally calibrated yet. That acts on a new rack and pinion gearbox because the P1800 had a recirculating ball thing. There are double wishbones all around with adjustable dampers. The original P1800 had a live axle. This does not. And there are big brake discs, but they are unassisted brakes. So there's no ABS, there's no traction control. And so you end up with a car that is with a limited slip mechanical rear differential. You end up with a car which is just really pure and really honest and just invites you to drive it. So So what's it like? Well, it's fantastic. The short of it is, it's wonderful. Visibility is seriously good. It feels absolutely no weight at all. The steering is quite light. If I was recalibrating it, I would maybe calibrate it slightly heavier. In some ways it does feel like a race car in that it just has the same assisted feel all the way. It's really linear. You don't sort of build up weight off of straight ahead. The weight is the weight. This gearbox is, honest to God, this gearbox is so good. The only slight problem with it is it does rattle a bit. I mean, the whole car makes a lot of mechanical noises, but the gearbox rattles a lot. It's just the gear stick. But the shift quality is so precise and so mechanical. It is off the scale. I have never felt a gearbox quite as good as this. It's just fantastic. Pedal weights are all superb. Driving position is great. It's just really absolutely terrific. It's so engaging and so involving because it's just you and the car, and that's it. Nothing else. You're just driving. You're also driving in a really wonderful environment. This interior is so beautifully put together. Material quality is absolutely spot on, and the dials are lovely, and everything just has a really classic but high quality sort of feel to it. Cyan Racing says they can make up to about 10 a year of these cars with a price that will be about, I think we reckon just under 400 grand depending on your conversion. They say it can be registered anywhere inside the EU. Now, in the UK, we have a slightly weird points-based system if you are making modifications to cars. And if you modify them heavily, you've got to obtain a certain amount of points. Like if you retain the original engine and transmission, retain the rear axle, retain the body, stuff like that, it all counts towards a points thing if you want to retain the original registration number. Some people do not entirely declare everything they have or have not done to a car. So I suspect if you had a P1800 you could get away with it, but at worst you end up putting it through an individual vehicle approval type reg or something like that. You can have one and you can drive one, just may not have the number plate you want. So at Autocar we've driven a few modernised classics or restomods, call them what you will. There are videos elsewhere on this channel. You can also find us at autocar.co.uk or at all good newsagents every Wednesday, but significantly I want to tell you about a test we did last year of Alphaholics GTA R, Alfa Romeo, a Porsche 911 modified by Tuthill Porsche, and also a Jensen Interceptor, which has been done by JIA. Now, of all those three, and in fact all the other restomods that are around, the one it feels most like to me in concept is probably an Alphaholics GTA R, in that they take a base car, they take it apart and they rebuild it with lighter bits, stiffened bits, carbon fibre bits, a new engine, a new axle, so on and so forth. They're sort of not dissimilar amounts of effort, not dissimilar amounts of money, not dissimilar in the fact that they're still pure and simple and absolutely impeccably finished. They feel fantastically engineered. Which do you prefer? I think depends on which kind of character you would like more in your car. The GCAR is unbelievable. I think it's one of the best 10 cars I have ever driven. I would love to drive this on a circuit, to say for sure. As it is today, we've decided to come and try it out on the road, where it is just fantastically engaging and involving. And it's just, which do you prefer? Doesn't matter, does it? They're built in such tiny quantities for people who absolutely love cars like this that, I mean, you could consider them the same, but they're not rivals, really. The world is quite big enough for two makers of cars like this. In fact, the world is quite big enough for even more. Just whoever had the idea in the first instance of taking an old car and putting some new bits in it and stiffening it up, I just want to take them by the hand and shake it violently for hours in a very COVID unfriendly manner to say thank you for bringing the idea of the Restomod to the world, because this car is just brilliant.